The Trinidad and Tobago Football Association has been confirmed for Friday for, I suppose you could call it part 2 of our discussion with him, because there are so many issues in football in Trinidad and Tobago. Even since Friday's discussion with him, a lot more things would have developed, so you can look forward to that as well. Come Friday, whether it's David John Williams campaigning for the next election, well, he'll have to deal with the many issues on the table still in football in Trinidad and Tobago come Friday, God willing, so you can look forward to that. All right, let's deal with our topic this morning, because no one ever wants to feel disrespected. You hear that all the time. I feel in disrespect. This person diss me, and that's where the phrase diss, the term diss comes from, and how people react when they feel disrespected. Whether at home, the classroom, or while socializing, it's a desire we all crave to be respected. We have all heard the complaints, especially about the younger generation. In a world where discipline and morals seem to be out the door for many, how do we teach our children, and by extension our society, the importance of respect? First and foremost, I'm sure those young people will say, well, the adults that they want me to respect, they need to deserve respect in the first place. But again, that's another discussion. We're joined by a number of personalities who are going to give us some perspectives on this entire issue of respect, the relationship between the generations, the intergenerational divide, and all the different issues tied into it. We have with us clinical psychologist and public relations officer of the Trinidad and Tobago Association of Psychologists, Kelly McFarlane, no stranger to this environment. On a Wednesday, she was here just a couple of weeks ago dealing with a different issue. We also have with us the former head of the Trinidad and Tobago Unified Teachers Association, former head of the Principals Association as well, and consultant in certain respects in the whole education sector, Trevor Oliver, given his vast experience in the education sector. He'll offer his perspectives as well. And Officer Derek Sharbody, the manager of the St. James Police Youth Club. Good morning to all. Thanks very much for joining us. We always say Officer Sharbody. What is your rank, Officer Sharbody?
Yeah, police officer.
Police officer, not sergeant?
No, there's no need for that.
Okay, so Officer Sharbody. All right, just wanted to clarify, because I didn't want to disrespect Officer Sharbody this morning. So again, good morning to all. Let's start the ball rolling with Ms. McFarlane. When we talk about the issue of respect and disrespect in the society that is Trinidad and Tobago, just give us your overview, your own point of view in relation to that.
Well, respect has to do with recognizing other people's desires and needs, and what other people, their own values, and sort of I want to say allowing them or accepting them regardless of that, and respecting what they want. And
therefore, when we talk about the opposite of that, disrespect, is that automatically not recognizing someone's status or someone's value or their values and whatever they hold to be important, and for you not regarding that as being of any importance?
Absolutely.
Yes. And given, is it that we have a problem with that in Trinidad and Tobago right now? Is it a case of misunderstanding rather than hostility? How do you place this entire issue of disrespect? Because as we said in our introduction, you often hear a lot of young people saying that they were disrespected, this person dissed me, all that sort of thing. Yes. What do you understand that dialogue to be about?
I think particularly, okay, as we grow, children go through different stages of trying to determine individuality. And as they go through those stages, they're faced with different challenges. And the way that they traverse those challenges has a lot to do with the adults and the influences in their lives, and how we as adults support that type of development. So I always say humans are social beings. So we learn from example, right? So when we have the right people modeling the right behaviors and the ways to respect or accept other people's rights and other people's feelings and the way that other people are, you will have a better sort of outcome in terms of how the youths kind of behave in society with regards to respect.
Do we have a healthy environment right now when it comes to that whole situation about respect, disrespect, that sort of thing? Well, how would you describe the environment?
I think one of the reasons that it looks like the environment is less healthy is that children have become a lot more autonomous or independent, a lot less seen and not heard than in previous generations. So it may appear like, that we have an unhealthy environment where respect is concerned. But And that comes a lot from social media and sort of, Trinidad and Tobago is a very collectivistic society. And the more we are exposed to individualistic societies, like particularly the US, the more you see some shifts in behaviors. What has to happen now is that the previous generation, the elders now, have to learn how to deal with that and how to support children through this new sort of wave of behavior and thinking.
Well, that allows me to introduce Mr. Oliver as one of our elders in the education sector, someone who's been at the forefront for many, many years, for decades in that regard. Has that been a challenge, Mr. Oliver, when we talk about coping with what appears to be a generational shift in the outspokenness or the way young people choose to express themselves?
The thing is that disrespect, let me say, is pervasive in the society, all right? And some people believe that children will only learn, operate with what they learn in school and so on. But that is not the case, right? You have parliamentarians and so on who should be showing examples, some of them. And the things they say, the things they do sometimes, it almost made tears come out of my eyes. They don't know that the children are listening. Then parents at home, they tell the children, well, don't cuss and so on. But they're cussing with the neighbor and so on. So that what we have to understand, that example is the best teaching method. You could say what you want, but if you do not show the kind of behavior to be modeled, you can't tell anybody about that. And I think that is not the only problem, but I think that is a major problem, that the society is developing a culture of disrespect. I don't care about you, or you are a child. Shut up your mouth. They can't ask you why you tell them that.
But hasn't it always been thus, Mr. Oliver? I mean, I was having this discussion a couple of weeks ago in a different setting, and they were talking about how in the days the teacher, if you talk out a turn, the teacher would take the dust and pelt it behind you and so on. I mean, that is an act of violence. The thing is, but in those days, it was seen as perfectly normal. Teachers used to take chalk and duster and anything that they could get their hands on and pelt it behind children. And people say, well, that is discipline. Yeah. That is the way it should be done. Hasn't it always been thus?
That was wrong. That was wrong. And that's why we moved to a situation where we talk about the cessation of corporal punishment and so on. To me, changes. But
look what we have now, Mr. Oliver. We have verbal punishment. We have the rant of the teacher that is there for everybody to see, that many people have heard, that many people are saying, well, this is nothing new, that this is nothing surprising, that teachers would speak to students in a certain way and use language to them very regularly. So have things really changed?
Yeah, well, it's in terms of teaching, to my mind, that's a minority. Yeah?
You're making excuses for your teaching profession?
No. That's a minority thing. Not that it should be there and so on, because any teacher who is worth his or her soul has to find ways of talking to children, of getting them to understand. And I have, through my years of teaching, I have met many, many teachers who have gone through a lot of problems, but were able to maintain their calm and their cool. Now, the whole question that comes into is the control of yourself, self-control. And the thing is that there's no meter that can tell you, no instrument at this point in time really pointing out to what extent the misbehavior or what is. But we certainly know from what is happening. And as I said, the parliamentarians, they were once looked up to and so on, but that is gone.
But Mr. Oliver, before I bring in Officer Shabadi to get his perspective, just on the point that Mr. McFarlane was making, that because in the modern era now, everything you say or do is likely to go on social media in next to no time. And therefore, is it that the situation is only appearing to be really bad because now everything is posted online? Whereas before, in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and so on, I mean, I know I am not unique, because I'm sure everybody out there listening and watching, if they were able to record everything that happened to them in school in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, as far as the disrespect from teachers, the language in schools, and so on, and post it online, would it be much different from what we're experiencing now?
Well, I can't say, but it's a multifaceted thing, so that is one thing. That is true to a certain extent. But one thing I want to mention, for instance, where the disrespect is shown and nobody seems to raise a cry about it. There's a certain chicken outlet had, an advertisement where a child is put on a wall or something, and the father, whoever, is eating.
He taped the child on a wall and so that he could eat the food without being harassed.
Right. And then there was another one from that same group where a gentleman is taking an old lady across the road, and he sees the chicken and leaves the lady in the traffic. Now you may say, well, that is comedy. It's not comedy. The children digest it. So there are a lot of things in the environment that, besides what you say, besides the technology, but a lot of things in the environment that really feeds this thing.
All right. Well, let's see Officer Shabadi's perspective, because as the manager of the St. James Police Youth Club, you interact with young people. Some of them troubled young people with a lot of different issues of feeling disrespected, feeling not regarded for whatever they have to bring to any particular situation. What is your own sense of this entire discourse about disrespect?
Well, good morning again, Mr. Garcia and
Oliver.
Mr. Oliver, you're promoting him already? Is he supposed to be the new education minister? You don't know? Mr. Oliver, you're taking over from Mr. Garcia? He getting fired tomorrow?
Mr. Oliver.
And Ms. McFarlane.
Ms. McFarlane. Yeah. I think that when you look at 2019, the question of respect is not high on our party list. The last time I checked, even the reverse or the revised list, respect is not there. The young people that come under my care, they have very little respect. And one of the reasons is because of the parenting, and by extension, the environment is not conducive to respect. It is very unfortunate, but it is telling that even some of the young people, without even them speaking, their body language speaks disrespect. They don't want to say anything. It speaks disrespect. Mothers will come to me and say, officer, I need help with this young man. Not the question of education, not the question of applying himself, but respect. There is no other in the home. I have fathers saying, listen, me and this young man, we are having a battle here. Somebody will end up dying today. And you need to talk to this young man for me. Up to last night, I am receiving a call after 10. A single parent mother is saying, I need you to come home and speak to my son. I don't know what to do again. He's disrespectful. And when you look at importation of foreign culture, and you look at all the different factors that will contribute to where young people are, it's well packaged, it's glamorized, it's the order of the day. You cannot walk for a spin for 10 minutes without being disrespectful. Somebody will disrespect you. Either your space has been violated, somebody, a vagrant, pull along the pants. You have to be careful. Don't walk with your jewelry. Make sure you hold your purse properly, because people are disrespectful. And that culture of disrespect continues to blossom and grow. And as Oliver said, Garcia, that there's very little being done. We are more reactive than proactive. And as a police officer working with young people, it is a dreadful sight. I'm telling you, it is not good what we are seeing, and we need to address it fast.
And I'd like us to go even more into this, because I'm trying to rationalize it myself from my own experience at school and all that sort of thing. And I'm wondering, Ms. McFarlane, when we talk, as Officer Shabadi mentioned, the situation where someone is calling him after 10 o'clock last night, or some father is saying, look, me and this boy, something will happen here if you don't intervene. Is that the fault of the child or the parent?
Okay, well, first of all, it may, okay, not necessarily the fault of the parent.
Yeah, and I know it is not always something that you just simply categorize X, Y, Z.
Yes.
But what I'm saying is that the environment in which that child is either being disrespectful or whatever, is that something that was created independently by that child, or is the child reacting to the circumstances in which he or she exists?
More times than not, the child is reacting to the circumstances. That's not only in the home, could be in the school environment, the living environment, the neighborhood that they're in. But it is the responsibility of parents to try to buffer those environmental influences. Sometimes you can't control where you live or the schools that your children go to, or sometimes you can't even control the friends that they choose to have. But if you are nurturing and you're very attentive and you take the time and the patience and the empathy to talk to your children and to know what's going on in school, know what's confusing them, what's scaring them, then it helps to buffer some of that. You see, children go through a lot of trials in their daily lives, especially because they don't know how to handle this new individuality that they found, this new autonomy that they found. They sometimes need the guidance to make good decisions. And so the onus is on the parents, really, more than anybody else, to tap into that and be aware of where they are in that regard.
And just on the point of disrespect, and it's not about spending a whole heap of time in trying to define it, but I'm just wondering as well, if sometimes we think the word respect meaning obedience. So in other words, because I'm younger, because I'm your child, because I'm supposed, as we would say in the old days, to be seen and not heard, I must obey you. You understand respect to be that I must obey you no matter what. Even if you're telling me, don't use that language or whatever, as Ms. Oliver mentioned, but you cussing all the time.
Yeah.
You come home cussing and getting on, you're beating my mother and all that kind of thing. You're drunk half the time. Yet when I stand up to you, you want to kill me because I am supposed to be obedient or subservient. Is that giving us some sort of context?
It's conflictual because the child now sees you as not respecting them. And when a child doesn't feel like they're respected, they're not likely to respect you. As well, they are modeling your behaviors. So you're confusing me. You're telling me this is a terrible way to behave.
In other words, do as I say, but not as I do.
Yeah, but that's not realistic. Because I learn from what you do. So it's not realistic to ask me in my still developing brain to not do what I see and figure out somehow to do what this abstract thing that you're telling me to do, even though there's no example of it.
Mr. Oliver.
Yes, well, one of the things that must happen in the school system is the question of emotional intelligence. There's something called emotional intelligence, and it involves anger management and all of that. So that it has to be a multifaceted approach to deal what we have. Now, a lot of these fathers and mothers to a certain extent, they grew up without being able to control their emotion, because we are not only seeing fathers beating up mothers and, children there. But murders take place and the child is there. How is that child supposed to navigate that kind of situation? So that I am saying, because while I'm talking, I want to venture like suggestions that needed to help.
Obviously.
So that the question of emotional intelligence and critical thinking, those two aspects must be pushed in the school. The school has to do a little more of that. Some schools are doing it, some schools are not doing it. And in the society, there have to be more counseling, where big men, where they have to undergo some developmental work in emotional intelligence, because a lot of the things that go on, the cussing that go on, sometimes the mother who is cussing in front of the child, she has had a hard day, she is not getting what she should to feed the children, but she gets away, you know, she gets into a situation where it doesn't matter what I say or what I do, right? Sometimes, you know, parents come to school and the way they want to talk to the child and say to the child, sometimes you just have to tell them as a teacher.
Put your finger on your lip.
Yeah, tell them the child is there. You know, sometimes they bad talking the father or something in a vulgar way, but you have to let them know some of these things are not to be demonstrated in front of the child.
How do we manage a situation like that, Mr. Oliver? Because, I mean, we've had this discussion previously as to whether we expect the school environment to re-socialize people or young people who have been exposed to a different kind of reality outside the school environment. Are we asking the impossible of the school system?
Well, it's not impossible, because Michael Fullan, one of the greatest educators we have in this time, he says the parents must do, you know, neighbors must do. He said, but if all else fails, the school must not. I'm not saying that the school has to take the blame for everything. I was
going to ask you, I mean, is that fair to put that burden on teachers and
principals? But what I'm saying is that the school, in a sense, has to make an extra effort, and some people are making it. Let me make that clear. While I say that, I do not mean the school as a whole isn't doing it, because many schools have brought children out of the brink. I myself, I wrote a book on it, where they bring children out of the brink. But, well, the school has to try as far as possible. If the failures all around, the school has to make a difference. And I have seen, I'm not talking about what I don't know, I have seen teachers, many teachers make a difference in children's life, despite what is happening in the home. But they are also, to my mind, what I'll call worthless teachers. And when I say worthless, I don't mean worthless, because no human being that God created could be worthless. But there are some worthless teachers who are not pulling their weight. And the problem is, team, you depend on team. Team is the way to go. So that if you have an orchestra and everybody singing good, but the drummer going out or some bad, so that the few that I would say that are in the system messing it up, they're causing the pan to be out of tune and so on. Right, so there has to be that. Okay, it has to be a team effort. Let's take a pause, because we just have to take a quick break before we continue with our dialogue. We'll be continuing beyond 7 o'clock with it, because this is Wednesday. This is our family focus series, and we want to get some solutions as well. It's not just about lamenting the realities, but it's also about how do we fix this. First of all, we need to acknowledge that we have a problem, which is sometimes a challenge for many people. They don't want to acknowledge it, but I think the reality is there. As I said, we could argue whether it's something that's been going on for a long time. It's now more highlighted because of social media and phones and camera phones and everything. But what are some of the solutions? What are some of the remedies that will help us in this issue, dealing with respect, disrespect, young people, old people, generational issues, and so on? We'll take a break and continue with our guests.
Back to school is a must, so I could get a free ride on the school bus.
Port of Spain for 8 o'clock. Most of those people will be very much on time. Well, we're on time at the moment with our discussion with our three guests, talking about the issue of respect, disrespect to young people, senior citizens, different generational issues and so on. Clinical psychologist and public relations officer of the Trinidad and Tobago Association of Psychologists, Kelly McFarlane, together with the former head of Tutor Trevor Oliver and Officer Derek Sharbody, the manager of the St. James Police Youth Club, who will give us his perspective now, because Officer Sharbody, in your initial brief response, you gave us the reality.
Yes.
How do we remedy this? I mean, in your discussions, in your dialogue with whether it's angry young people or even angry adults who want you to deal with their children for them, that sort of thing, how do you find a resolution that could create a healthy environment of respect and regard for each other? How do you do that?
Well, I think the first thing we need to establish that any society that rewards bad behavior is a lost society. And therefore, you need to show young people very early the rewards and the incentives of being respectful. And that needs to start very early in the early childhood stages. It should not start at the secondary only. I think character building is paramount now. And we cannot wait until you have cases like these, the unfortunate situation with a teacher.
Yes.
And then for us to come up with a syllabus. Time has been indicating we have been seeing very early the importance of being reactive instead of
being proactive instead of being reactive.
The point I want to make is that the society that continues to be reactive suffer. And the more proactive approach is better. For example, if two young people are having a discussion and one is being disrespectful, then a third party will say, do you think that's the correct way to speak to her? Is there another way you can speak to her? And then that behavior should be applauded. You follow? Let me give you an example. Sometimes you have a cup of coffee in the morning and you're making your way to Port of Spain and you're in traffic. And you turn on your radio and you're listening to one of these talk show programs. Sometimes you have to bring up your coffee. No respect, you get them talking about the Prime Minister, Rowley, Keith, not the Honorable Prime Minister. You hear them probably making a comment about Her Excellency the President and May Weeks. Even the Commissioner of Police. What Gigi doing this week? You follow? Even the opposition leader. I think that
why is that disrespectful? I do that right here. So, just on that point,
yes.
I think some people might argue, well, not because you name the Right Honorable so-and-so, I must call you the Right Honorable so-and-so, you must earn my respect.
I think that we need to respect the person's office, the whole of the office, and not the individual. This person is the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, and young people are listening in. And even though you are criticizing or you are making a point, or there is something that you may not agree with, I think that the man has earned the title as Prime Minister of this country. And you're saying, the Honorable Prime Minister, I would like to disagree with you on this point. Her Excellency the President, I think that was very, it adds value when young people are hearing, when you give people the respect and the titles. Let me give you a quick example.
Sure.
We were going down to the Labor Day with 25 young people. Her Excellency the President has a program called Citizen True, being patriotic and learning about, and there were two young men in the back of the bus having a discussion. One of the young men, on recognizing the amount of police, say, I saw Gigi down here. So the next one said, Gigi, Dr. Gigi. He said, Gigi, Commissioner. And the young man turned to him and said, you mean the Commissioner of Police, Mr. Gary Griffith? So you follow?
Yeah.
And that young man couldn't say that because of either somebody reminded him the importance of the man and the individual as an office holder. As a society, we must start there first. We must lead by example. The media plays an important role in educating, informing, and nurturing the minds of the young people. And they too are paying attention to young people. So these skip and roles, all that is important, but we must also, as a society, applaud good behavior. Applaud that which is respectful. When people say good morning, good afternoon, you go and you ask for your bullet paper. Classic case I'm giving you. I went to the counter and said, pleasant good morning. I'm here to get a copy of my birth paper. So I realized that the person didn't hear me again. I said, pleasant good morning. She said, yes, I hear you. She didn't say, well, pleasant good morning. Hold on, please.
Yeah.
I can remember next matter again. I was making my way down to somewhere on Charlotte Street. And I was trying to find which part one of the ministries was. So approaching the gentleman, I said, good morning, sir. The gentleman turned to me and said, I have no money. I said, but I was going to ask you. He said, no, I have no money. He didn't say good morning. I have no money, you know. Immediately he thought I was going to ask him for some money. There has to be an education drive. There has to be a new trend that is set up, and it has to be planned and deliberate that starts from the schools, because they're delinquent parents.
Someone says start from the homes, you know. Well, because I don't know if I heard Mr. Oliver's point about if all else fails, the schools mustn't fail. But what again? I think it's again, this is my point. Isn't it unfair to expect teachers and principals and the school environment to repair situations created in the home and persist in the home when the child go back home?
While it's unfair, it has become a necessity now, because delinquent parents are not doing a good job, and the children are now coming in schools, and as a result of that, the teachers have to go back to their syllabus and go back to addressing questions of issue of disrespect and respect for people's property. You check homes, burglar proof, alarm detector, dogs in front. It's because somebody's disrespectful in the community. Somebody wasn't trained to understand that this is my property and you must respect my property. You have cases of people doing refurbishment in the home. Two young men will come, the boss, I see the refurbishment, I'm going to get something now. The boss man said, well, I can't help you. I really can't. But in fact, that's one of the reasons why I'm for my house. 2 weeks after I get the fella's dead. I have cases of mother telling me while they were in the home, gunmen kicked down the door, and gunmen tell them time to push. She said, time to push, we're talking about. The boss say that your family is an informer in the community, time to push. She said, just so? I said, yes. She said, well, check my phone now. I do him have. And she was trying to make a case. Yeah. She said, all right. And she took her things and left. By the time she came back with police, everything gone. Disrespect. No care for life, and well, don't ask for life.
I know,
by itself.
Say something.
Yeah, before I bring Mr. McFarland's perspective, go ahead.
What I want to say, because we're dealing with solution, I want to say that Officer Shabadi and others like him are people making a difference. So that is what I want to see. Part of the solution is more of us have to try to make a difference. All right? That as he was there.
Right, sure.
Thank you.
Mr. McFarland, your perspective on this, because it's all well and good for us to sit down here and talk about how bad things are.
Yes.
How do we turn things around? Or how do we slow the regression? What do we do?
I think that all really great points. It does start in the home. From the time your child starts giving you a little bit of sass. And sometimes it's difficult for parents to look at their children's behaviors realistically, and they see things as cute that they shouldn't see as cute, and they think they would grow out of certain behaviors. But definitely some parenting work to understand how children develop and what you would see at different stages. And I believe that there is a collaborative effort that is needed between the school and the parents. Remember, children spend hours per day, most days of the week at school. That's the environment that they're in, and they learn from their environment. They learn from their peers. They learn from the culture of their environment. So one, we adults need to respect children to get respect from children as well. As much as it sounds like how dare we need to respect them for them to respect us. We do, because we teach them what respect means. They can't just figure that out, right? And because they have their own feelings and their own mind, we have to kind of know how to relate to them so that they behave in a way that is desirable.
We're going to take a break in a short while for the news at the top of the hour, but I just want to get your perspective on it, because we often talk about the situation. We have to start from small, but the reality is, Ms. McFarland, we have big children. We have teenagers, we have adolescents, we have 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds who are disrespectful and in many different ways that manifests itself in many different ways, violence, crime, all that sort of thing. Can that sort of level be repaired? Can you repair a situation of disrespect at the adolescent level? Is it too late? Can that be
absolutely
fixed?
not. Absolutely, you can. You absolutely can
How?
fix it by, first of all, understanding why the child is disrespectful. Is this an issue of something that goes undetected a lot, a learning disability, that the child is actually unable to sort of rationalize their behaviors properly and take social cues, they have low frustration tolerance? Is it a mental health problem, or is it that there's something in their environment, some sort of abuse, some sort of poor social learning that's happening? First of all, we need to tap into what is happening with the child, and then we can start to give solutions, because there's no one-size-fits-all solution for any child. All of these things depend on what's happening to them.
Because as we found out, it's only things that you learn about subsequently, that children who are called Dunsey might have been dyslexia.
Or ADHD, that's a big one, behaviors.
That kind of hyperactive, and because you don't fit into what is considered normal behavior, you are cast aside and ridiculed and humiliated by teachers, by your peers. I think almost all of us, if we could identify with situations like that, if not directly with ourselves, but with other students and so on.
But I find that there's some institutions that people who go through them or part of them, they are able to weather the storm. For instance, the police youth club. I happen to interface with children who have been to the police youth club with Officer Shabadi and them. Some of them I knew were the normal, well, what you call ragtag. And you hear them now, you see them now, so that they are, and as you say, we have to recognize that there are people and institutions that are making a difference, part of the school making a difference, right? So that it must mean that we have to have more of those.
Yes.
Not only police club, but other clubs, and...
Let's just pause for a moment, Mr. Oliver, because we're coming up towards 7 o'clock. We just have to take a break, and then we'll continue the discussion, because at the end of it all, when we come back and we have a few more minutes, we want to try to find ways that we could actually deal with, rather than talking around the issue, as many times we do, sadly, in public discourses, talking around issues. We really want to get to the, is it the media? Is it that the media continues to promote negative types of behavior and celebrates negative and destructive types of behavior, and that has a role to play in that as well? We'll be back right after this break. This morning, but it doesn't preclude the arrival of the showers later this morning or this afternoon, so just be mindful of that as well. Well, we have a few minutes left with our three guests this morning to talk about the issues related to respect and disrespect, whether it's the school environment, the home environment, whether we're talking about adults, children, media, all the many different issues tied into it. Clinical psychologist and public relations officer of the Trinidad and Tobago Association of Psychologists, Kelly McFarlane, together with Trevor Oliver, former head of Tutor, former head of the Principals Association, and Officer Derek Shabadi, yes, plain old Officer Derek Shabadi, manager of the St. James Police Youth Club, with us. And in the time that we have available, we're just trying to deal directly with the challenges. And Mr. Oliver, from your own perspective, is this a situation that has deteriorated to such an extent that it's going to take a very long time to repair the situation? Are there specific interventions that can be done? And I raised the issue of the role of the media in that regard before we went to the break. Is it that even if you do something in the school or the home environment and so on, children are exposed to so much, whether on mainstream media or social media, that is very negative and destructive, that you're fighting a losing battle?
Well, let me just say in terms of the school, because I see the school as important in the issue, and since that is my experience,
yes, sure.
I feel that what you call the administration conference, the administrators conference, what is known also as the principals and so on, I feel that some persons have different experience that they could learn. And instead of at these administrators' conference, you're bringing up people, to talk about all manner of things. And the principals just sit down and listen. I believe if there is a sharing, if that principal conference or administrators' conference is used to deal with best practices, how you coping? You have these children, what is happening, discussion, because some schools clearly, they have strategies and things that can help children in a lifelong way. Despite what is around them, they could bring it around. So that's one thing I want to suggest to the ministry, that the administrators' conference should be something where principals share best practices. My school is good at reading. You are getting problems. You want some strategies. I just mentioned it.
Sure.
So that's one of the things. I said the use of calypso, and I know the problem with the calypso is the bacchanal that surrounds some of it. But I am saying we will never get rid of that bacchanal and whining, so that we have to extrapolate some of the better calypsos in terms of building. Use it in the school. Let the children analyze. Let them come acquainted with it, and so on. And that would help. I am not saying there's any quick fix and all of that. But gradually you'll find that there would be an emergence of a new culture coming on. Because as I have said, I have interfaced with people who have been socialized by Mr. Constable Shabadi and others in the police youth club generally, and they are exposed to a whole lot of skills that when you talk to these people, it's like they have a little proof, right, that going on and on, but I have my head on, and that is why critical thinking in the schools, that's important, because when you could think critically, people can't bamboozle you and so on. You could know right from wrong. If somebody, you see, with critical thinking, if you're having a discussion like we are having here, children are able, you have a discussion, children hear the discussion and so on, and you could bring them back, so that it has to be multifaceted.
Officer Shabadi, is it a lost cause? Is it a lost situation?
No, I think, generally speaking, all is in loss. And I would like to appeal to, and I see that TV6 has taken the leadership role in continuing the good work in PSA, that's public service announcements, where after news, you see some nice ad come up about parenting and communication, and sometimes parents and what to do in terms of reconciling. We need some more PSA. It needs to be in your face. We need to applaud Surveillance Conservation Corps, My Lap, My Part. They're good. Their organization doing excellent work on the ground. And
they have a fantastic series going on. I mean, I think it's on Thursday night right after the news, where the Ministry of National Security, I think they are involved in the whole promotion and highlighting the challenges faced in certain communities, and giving you really positive messages in that regard.
And that needs to be planned and deliberate. We need to continue. If it needs more sponsorship, I think that educating parents and getting parents informed, letting them know that all isn't lost, we are there to help, not only to criticize, but we are helping hand is good. Let me tell you something, Brother Mohammed. When a member of the youth club would arrive at the youth club center, we normally have a system where they would sign in. On arrival at the office, the first thing you get is pleasant good morning, sir. Anybody else in the office, good morning, miss, good morning, ma'am. And then we commend them, say, excellent. At the end of our activity, we also point out some of the good best practice in terms of their attitude, pleasantries, and we let them know we want to salute that kind of behavior. And we encourage other members to, to embrace that kind of behavior. So that we need to not only talk, but the environment is also paramount. What kind of environment do we set? And do we applaud our youth? Right? The next area is the question of speakers. You bring people on board to let them know the value. Sometimes children go and do an interview, they have all the passes, but they know how to sit, how to stand, how to speak. Basic fundamental things, but they have passes, and they come highly recommended too. But just that part alone, you see management from and say, nah, not this one at all. So therefore there's a missing link, and we need to put back discipline, tolerance, production, respect for each other, and stop on our priority list.
And, yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Ballroom dancing. we complain about young men can't dance, and I introduced ballroom dancing. So even though you criticize it constructively. You show our gentleman must hold a lady and all ladies should be held. And young ladies, they feel different. How the hand should be rested and how it should be held, and the movement and how gracefully you should take the floor. And when you finish with the young lady, you take her back and you thank you very much for the set. Those are things that we need to bring back into our schools and the clubs and organizations so that young people realize that this is a part of bringing the grace and the talent and the respect back.
I hear you on that, but that's talking about the young people. What
Yes.
about the parents? Because you interact with a lot of parents as well.
Well, without any effort, and I'm talking about the triangle concept where you have child, police, and parent, you need to have the parent involvement. And you have to go beyond the call of duty sometimes to get parents, because sometimes you're speaking to the converted. When you call a parent meeting, his parents are already supporting you.
Yeah, we talk about that over and over again.
That's right. So you have to make an effort to go and visit them. Then we know the value of coming to a parent meeting. Sometimes visit the home. Let me give you a quick joke. I was invited to a home, and the mother from the home said, listen, officer, don't sit down there and don't. You have to go and patronize. Go open the fridge. Take what you want. Your home is my home. When I opened the fridge, guess, I saw some items being labeled, Mike alone, don't touch it, don't leave alone. So I asked her, I said, Mommy, what is this all about? She said, I'm a 22-year-old in the house there. You can't touch your item at all, You don't make joke. No. You will live in the same home. Your milk is my milk. My beverage is your beverage. If you want, you ask for. You say, can I have some? You have people labeling the items now, and you have this. So home, we need to redefine home. We need to let them know that being respect for each other's item and each other's is all offers well, because we are preparing them for the world of work and preparing them to be future fathers and future mothers as well.
Mr. McFarlane, your own perspective in that regard, because I think sometimes we feel overwhelmed because you realize the depth of the challenges that we face, the breadth of the challenges that we face when it comes to issues of respect and fostering respect, not in the terms of obedience, but in recognizing somebody else's intrinsic value and whatever they bring to a discussion, and this whole issue of being disrespected and so on. How do we really even begin to deal with this in a much more direct way, rather than, as we often do, and I think Mr. Oliver talked about, going to all these conferences and so on and talking, and not really dealing with the fundamental issues?
Do you mean from as a society or as individual adults?
You take it whichever direction you want to.
Well, firstly, we do have to mind our own impulses and our own emotions. Where a lot of times when parents or teachers or any adults don't know how to handle a situation, they might panic, they might get overly emotional, and then they might either take a very relaxed approach or they might try to control the child. Both don't work very well. Always try to be calm and think things through. I like the idea of emotional intelligence, tapping into how other people are feeling, in terms of how you are feeling and how they are feeling and how your emotions are affecting them. That would help with the children. And as I mentioned before, with knowing what's happening with the child in their inner world, if you heal or tap into what's going on in the child's inner world, it helps them navigate their outer world. So sometimes you notice your child is having a lot of problems in school or a lot of behavioral problems. Do a psychoeducational evaluation or some sort of assessment to figure out, okay, what might be happening that's causing these issues. It's very, very important to connect with what is happening to your child emotionally and psychologically.
Do people have the time to do that these days? Do they have the inclination to do it these days?
I won't say that they don't have the inclination. They may not know that it exists. Because just as we were saying before, a lot of times before, long ago, people didn't know about things in Trinidad like dyslexia and so on. The child's slow or dunce, so you're not learning, and they try to beat it into them. Again, punishment doesn't work. It just scares children. Children have a very sensitive nervous system. So when you just punish and you become hostile towards them, it shuts them down. Eventually they tune you out or they shut down. They don't learn anything. We have to, as the officer said, focus on positive reinforcement for good behaviors, right? And yeah, so we do have to tap into what is going on in children.
Let's leave the final word with the senior,
just to say, the literacy problem, I don't want to go into it in detail. Just to say.
Go ahead.
No. That literacy problem in the school is a big part of the confusion. The literacy that is in the society is a big part of the problem, because when you deal with the children who behave very badly, most of them, they have a problem with literacy. That's all I'll say for today.
You light the fire and you're ready to run. But anyway, it's time for us to run anyway with our discussion this morning. Mr. McFarlane, Mr. Oliver, and Officer Shabadi, thank you very much for taking time from, I know your busy schedules to join us so early in the morning to have this discussion as well. And let's hope once more that it's not just talk for talk's sake or to get an audience or to get more likes and shares and all of that, that it could actually mean something useful for our society in Trinidad and Tobago. Thanks very much once again for taking the time. You're more than welcome. Coming up towards 7:16, approaching 7:17 in Trinidad and Tobago. We'll be back right after this.
This is